Bad weather, wrong car, closed roads, missed flights. I've lived here for over 10 years now and I basically see these problems repeat every single winter. But trust me, winter in Iceland is incredible if you are prepared for it. So let me show you the 10 worst winter travel mistakes I see tourists make all the time and how you can actually avoid them. Alright, so let's take it step by step. Whatever you do, don't start your Iceland trip with a long drive in the dark. And this happens constantly, people land in the evening, it is pitch black and they are exhausted. And then they try to drive hours to Vik or even further along the south coast. And this is exactly where most first day accidents and panic moments happen. Just imagine it, you are on the empty road, it is snowing, the wind is blowing sideways, the road is icy, you are tired and you don't know the area at all. That combination is just a recipe for a disaster. If you arrive late, just stay near the Reykjavik or the airport and start your trip the next morning when it's bright and you are rested. This one choice basically prevents more problems than almost anything else. And actually recently I just got a question, what if I land at like 1 or 2 AM? Should I just start driving? In summer or a shoulder season I would probably say yes, but in December or January it just doesn't get bright until around 10 AM or something like that. And so if you run into some sketchy weather, it's simply just not worth the risk. Now let me ask you, what car are you planning to rent? The wrong rental car can ruin your entire Iceland trip. Here's what often happens. People pick a small two-wheel drive to save money and then they spend the whole week stressed, basically driving 40 kilometers per hour and, white-knuckling every icy stretch of the road. And it's not just the worst-case scenarios like sliding off the road, it's also the small stuff, getting stuck in a snowy parking lot or on the side of the road. And that alone can cost you hours. And I actually have an entire video dedicated just to this topic, so make sure to check it out later. But here is the simple truth. Yes, two-wheel drive can be enough if you have a winter driving experience and the weather behaves. But unless both of those align, it's a gamble. And that's why for most people, renting a 4x4 is just the safest choice. Just think of the price difference as an insurance, something you really don't want to skip. And to help you save a bit of money, I'll leave a discount code from my rental partners in the description below. Now, another huge mistake people make in Iceland in winter is not checking the weather properly. Most tourists check a random weather app before they arrive and that's it. But Icelandic weather can flip in like 30 minutes and the weather app that you use back home is probably not reliable here. Just check the weather every evening so you can adjust your plans for the next day, and I personally check the forecast in the evening and then again in the morning, just in case there were some updates. For weather, I use the Icelandic meteorological office weather.is, but their app is definitely not great, so please just use the website instead. And I mean, other apps might work too, and I'll make sure to test them in the future, but weather.is, that's what locals rely on and I would recommend you do the same. Alright, now here is something I want you to remember. Your Iceland summer itinerary will fail in winter and here's why. In December and January you might only get 5 to 6 usable daylight hours. So don't overpack your days. Just pick your must-see places and leave the rest optional. If you have around 6 days in Iceland, keep it simple, stick to the south coast and don't push too far past Hope. And could you add places like Snæfellsnes? Sure, but it really depends on your travel pace. If you are flexible, traveling in a camper van or staying somewhere where you can cancel, then you can definitely chase the weather more aggressively. And yes, sometimes, especially in cases like that, driving all the way to the opposite side of the island makes sense. But in general, this is the winter rule. Pick a few spots, slow down, and plan around sunrise and sunset, and that way you'll enjoy the trip way more. Alright, do you want to hear something that most people don't realize? Google Maps driving times are a lie in Iceland winter. You see, Google Maps assumes perfect conditions and winter roads, snow, ice, wind and getting stuck behind a slow convoy. These things slow you down massively. And that's also why people arrive at their hotels hours later than they expected. Just make sure to always add buffer time because winter driving is just never as fast as the map says. And outside of the capital, almost all roads are just 2 lanes. It is extremely common to get stuck behind a convoy of slow drivers and overtaking can be nearly impossible in certain conditions and low visibility. And that's why here's a little piece of advice that especially locals will appreciate. If you are part of that slow convoy and someone behind you wants to overtake, just help them. Just leave a bit of space between you and the car that's ahead so they have a room to fall back safely if needed. It's just a small thing that makes driving here safer for everyone. And if you are the first car in the convoy and there is somebody behind you, if the road ahead is clear and there is no incoming traffic, just signal with your right blinker. And that basically tells the person behind you that it is safe to pass. Alright, here is something that intimidates even me after years of living here. The wind in Iceland can literally rip your car door off. And I'm not even exaggerating, the wind here can push your car sideways and create complete whiteouts. People just often underestimate the weather here more than anything else. Once wind speed hit around 20 meters per second, you really need to think carefully about whether driving is safe. Use weather.is for weather and road.is for road conditions and closures. And these are not optional tools. And here's something that nobody talks about. If there is a snowstorm overnight and you check road.is early in the morning, the map might not be updated yet. Road conditions typically update from morning to late evening. And if you hit the road very early, then you might be the first car driving on a unplowed road, which could mean deep snow and possibly impassable sections. So that was driving, and now let's set your expectations about the Northern Lights. Most people visiting Iceland fail to see the Northern Lights completely because they focus on the wrong thing. People obsess over the KP index, they download like 5 apps and they drive to the best locations that they saw on Instagram. But here's the truth, none of that matters as much as clouds. You can have a KP6 and see nothing, or you can have a KP2 and get an insane show, if the sky is clear. And remember, Iceland isn't really known for its clear skies. What I'm trying to say here is don't make the aurora the entire point of your trip, especially if you are here only for a couple of days. Just think of it as a bonus. And if you want to maximize your chances, you can watch my Northern Lights video where I break everything down. Okay, I can talk about the bad weather all day, but nothing will make your experience more miserable than being cold. Wearing wrong clothes will ruin your Iceland trip faster than a bad weather. And I see this constantly, people show up in tracksuits, sneakers or fashion jackets and then they freeze the moment they step out of the car. Iceland isn't extremely cold temperature-wise, it's usually around between -5 to -10 degrees. But the wind chill here is brutal. You need proper layers. Real boots, windproof and waterproof jacket and trousers, warm gloves, a beanie, wool socks. And if you are worried about slipping on ice, which is a real risk, then bring ice grips too. And in the description of this video you'll actually find a link to my free packing list, so make sure to check it out so you don't forget anything. Okay, I think that we can all agree that Iceland isn't the cheapest place to visit. But do you know what's even more expensive? Missing your flight. This mistake makes people miss their flights every winter. If you stay in North Iceland, the East Fjords, the West Fjords, or basically anywhere far from the airport on your last night and the storm hits, that's it. Just make sure you always stay near the airport or Reykjavik the night before you fly. And can roads actually close for more than one day? Yes, it happens sometimes, not often, but it does. One buffer day usually solves that, and if you see an orange or red weather warning in the forecast, then consider heading back toward Reykjavik even earlier. And if you're unsure, just ask locals, people here are always willing to help. Alright, now this is a mistake that I see constantly. People build an itinerary with no wiggle room to adjust when the weather changes. And yes, we are talking about weather again, and yes, you cannot control the weather, but you can control how flexible your itinerary is. For example, if you plan to drive from Reykjavik to Vík and weather is horrible, you can still see roadside waterfalls like Seljalandsfoss and Skogafoss. But hiking to remote places like Plane Wreck, in bad weather, that's the worst idea. And you can simply push those to your return day when conditions might improve. But now when you remove things from your day, you most likely need to plug those holes again. And bad weather doesn't mean that you cannot do anything. You can still visit those easy access sites like I mentioned earlier, or book tours like lava tunnels or ice caves, if open, visit cozy cafes, museums, the lava show, or my favorite bad weather activity, hot springs, outdoor pools and lagoons. But winter in Iceland is amazing and it's actually my favorite season. And if you avoid these mistakes and stay flexible, you'll have one of the best adventures of your life. And if you are curious to see what visiting geothermal pool in Iceland looks like, then check out this video here where I visit one of my favorite lagoons in Iceland and I hope to see you there.